Okay, the room doesn't usually quiet down so much when I walk to the front of it, so I don't know what that is all about. Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. It's so great to see such a packed room today for this wonderful event. I have attended most, if not all, of the Against All Odds, and they've quickly become one of my favorite highlights of each semester. I am Hetty Richardson. I am the interim dean of the Neely School, and I get the pleasure of welcoming you today and kicking off this speaker series for this year. And I'm going to start by telling a story. And I know you're not here to hear my stories, but this one actually makes sense in the context, and it illustrates what's so great about our Neely students. And I think it also is going to fit very well with our speaker today and why this event is such an important event. So yesterday, I had the pleasure of having coffee with a student who reached out to me about this time last year, and I'm scanning the audience to see if maybe she's in here, but I don't think she is, and I'm not going to say her name because I don't know if she'd want me to do that. But she was really unhappy. She had applied for the Neely Leadership Program. No? Okay. She had applied for the Neely Leadership Program or the Fellows, I don't remember which one it was, didn't get in, and was like, okay, now what? Right? I wanted this so badly, and now what is there for me in Neely? And I'm like, what is there for you in Neely? Oh my gosh, we have things running out our ears. And so we talked about, okay, yeah, this happened, and you don't have this opportunity available to you right now, but what other opportunities do you have available to you? And let me tell you, she left that conversation, and she went out and she found everything she could do. And she made it happen, and she changed her future, and she had an incredible internship this summer. She's going to have an even better one next summer. She got accepted into the TIP program, right? Things are happening, and I was so impressed with her and so proud of her. And I was thinking, we need to tell your story to everybody, because everybody needs to learn how to deal with adversity and how to come back from setbacks and be even stronger and even better. And so that's why this event is, and the speaker series is so important. I always say I leave these events so inspired, so motivated, and always so happy that I was able to hear what our speakers had to say. And I think you will leave here with that same perspective. So with that, again, thank you for being here, and I will now turn it over to Anne.
Good afternoon, everyone. You look amazing. From here, it just looks so great having a full audience.
That's one thing I was supposed to do.
Come on back.
Okay, thank you.
I was ready to pivot, but
I forgot the single most important thing I was supposed to do when I was standing up here. So this event, for the first time, is now sponsored by Bank of America, which is part of the reason why we have an amazing Bank of America guest speaker today. Oh my gosh, like that's Interim Dean 101. How can you walk off the stage and not do that? But I especially want to thank Mike Pavel. He's a member of the MBA board. Neely Board of Advisors has nothing to do with with basketball. And he's also president of the Bank of America in Fort Worth. And not here today, but also want to thank Mandy Kaiser, who's Senior Vice President and North Texas Community Relations Manager at Bank of America. So super thrilled to have them sponsoring this event, and just turn around and look how full this room is and see how many people are here, because it's pretty amazing. So thank you. So sorry I forgot, but it means nothing. It just means I'm absent-minded. Okay, now I'll give it back to you.
Thank you. Well, I'll tell you, I am super excited. If we haven't had a chance to meet, my name is Ann Tasby. I lead our Office of Inclusive Excellence here in the Neely School. I have, this event is really the brainchild of a collaboration with one of our other Neely Board of Advisor members, David Russell, who will also be your moderator today. I'll hold on getting into detail about his background because there's more to come about him. But what I also want to stress to you is that what appears to be just a run-of-the-mill business development event or business and career development event, you need to know that Bank of America's sponsorship of this event is not just about what we're doing today. It's about making a generational difference in the life of our students, because the sponsorship of this event also helps us fund our access initiatives. Some of the access initiatives that we have launched here in the Neely School include, one, helping students in need so that they can afford their books, so that students can actually stay and don't have to sacrifice and drop classes because they can't afford their books. We make that happen through our Going the Distance Fund. In addition to that, we help students that have challenges affording their food. So believe it or not, here at TCU, we do have students that face meal insecurity. And the way that we solve for that is our Going the Distance Fund. This program also contributes to that. And then finally, one of the things that we heard from our students when we actually took the time to carve out several years ago, we carved out the time to actually host a listening session with our students and said, hey, why aren't we having as much diversity in the business school? Tell us what's going on. One of the key things that we heard was this whole idea of having to dress in business attire as a fundamental barrier to Neely. Unacceptable. We brought that issue to the Neely Board of Advisors. We now have a program where we provide our students in need with custom business attire. And this program helps to also make that possible. So I'm just thrilled. Mike heard about it in the Neely Board of Advisors meeting, and he just took a hold of it and said, hey, how can we be part of the solution? So I'm just excited, and I just, again, thank you, Mike, for your leadership and help to drive this whole sponsorship. So thank you. The other note I want to make is how important, I believe that things don't happen unless you have firm leadership support. Everything rises and falls on leadership. So with that, I want to acknowledge our provost that took the time out to come and be here. She supports our inclusive excellence initiatives throughout the university, so thank you, Provost Alburn. Thank you for being here. I also want to acknowledge our board of trustees and all of the other TCU leadership that has come together to help us make our inclusive excellence initiatives in the business school and really across the university happen. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to our, what we do in this session is that we always ask a student to introduce our speakers. And I thought, because we have an executive MBA, this is an executive MBA party. Where are my executive MBA students? Where are you? Woo! All right. I thought, why not feature one of our top MBA grads, and then have him introduced by probably one of our most famous EMBA grads, and that is Nui Scruggs. So if you don't know Nui, then you need to know that he's a 12-time Emmy winner. And he is just one of our incredible EMBA alums that is always looking for a way to contribute and give back to TCU. And so we thank you, Nui, for carving out the time to be here today. So Nui, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much. There are a couple folks that when they ask you to do something, you just say when, where. Ann Tasby is one of them. Let me piggyback off this for you, Interim Dean Hetty Richardson. B of A, you know me. 1996, I moved to Los Angeles, California. I'm there, it's my TV job, and there's a branch off La Brea Avenue. I go there, open up a checking account. I have been a customer ever since then, first home loan through B of A. So here I am at 52 years old, still with B of A. So thank you for sponsoring this event. We appreciate you. This is a special event, and I'm so excited to be here. I want to thank everyone from my class of 2023 MBA for showing up here today. Thank you. That's one thing is you go through this program and you start to find out that how many horned frogs are just there for you. And just to see the people in the crowd today is just absolutely awesome. I'm not smart enough to come up with a program like this, like Ann did, but also the person who helped Ann create this is today's moderator, and he is David Russell. Now, not only did he help create this with Ann Tasby, this was their thought. Okay, it's Neely's vision of unleashing human potential through adding an additional perspective from the business community that provided real-world insights to students in a personal way and adding to the Neely ecosystem. I.e., we're going to show people, show you real people, that it is achievable. So many times we see some of these folks up here, you're like, well, I can't do that. I can't run like this person. I'm not smart like this person. We want you to touch real folks and say, you know what, if you come to Neely, you can do some pretty special things. It's another thing about him. He's the co-founder and partner of the Mavros Capital Group, privately held financial services company. The man knows money, okay? Not only does he know money, for over a decade, he's got experience in the private equity and financial services industry with TPG, EY, UBS, and JP Morgan Chase. And I've already told him I'm taking him to lunch because I need to know. I need to know what you know. You find people who know money, you go rub up against them. That's what you do. His TCU involvement includes the Neely Board of Advisors, the Chancellor's Young Advisory Council, and he's an adjunct professor. Please welcome, actually I'll bring you up here in a minute, David Russell. So he's going to be our moderator today. The man who is speaking, the educated brother from the bank. For those who know that New Jack City line, okay? Rod Wilson, the educated brother from the bank, B of A. Rod thinks that I hazed him sometimes, but it really wasn't me. That was Eric Leonard in our class. The Kappa Alpha Psi guy. I'm the Mega Psi Phi guy. Dogs love people, okay? I love Rod. Rod was a fantastic person who went on an 18-month journey with me and 22 other people as we got our EMBAs here at this Neely School program. And it was an incredible journey to go through it. There were tears, and I have got a picture of us, and it's one of the things that I hold near and dear to my heart. Rod is the director and he's the Wealth Management Strategy Execution Manager for the Texas South Division. That's 15 markets that he is a part of. He serves as a co-chair for the enterprise-wide Lead for Women movement. He spent 26 years in the banking industry, 24 of those with B of A. The man is loyal to B of A. Y'all need to give him a raise. He was born in Louisiana. He has been raised in Texas, lives in Grand Prairie. He's got his beautiful wife, Amanda, here. He's got his three kids. I want to welcome up my man, Rod Wilson, and also our moderator, David Russell, for today's Against All Odds.
Well, that's the best intro we've had, so that was great. Man's always giving me instructions. How you guys doing today? So I didn't realize I had to go after a professional, so this should be interesting. I want to first start by saying thank you to everyone who's here, who's attending. It's always a privilege to be back on campus and to talk to folks. But the thing you guys must know today is when Rod and I had this first conversation about hosting this and having a conversation, he kept asking me like, hey, what should I wear? What should I do, etc. I said, well, listen, you can wear what you want to wear. I'm sure up with Jordans in a suit on. And so he came with these custom purple and white Jordan 1s on. So we got to give him a round of applause for those. Those are nice. How you feeling today?
I'm feeling good, and I have to give my wife credit. She tracked these shoes down for me.
For all the students out there, smart man right there.
Yeah,
give the wife
sure.
credit. Love that. So we'll start with the name of the series is Against All Odds, Stories of Determination and Grit. How do you define grit?
I define grit by being able to accomplish something that others can't do. When I think about grit and determination, I really think about my parents. So I'm going to try not to get emotional up here, but I think they're perfect examples of amazing work ethic, family values, having to overcome a lot. So they're both college graduates, graduated from Grambling State University in Louisiana, paid their way through school. My dad was an Air Force pilot in the early 60s when not a lot of African Americans were allowed to do that. And so it's a testament to kind of his hard work and commitment and being able to knock down barriers and walls that were in his way. And so I could sit here and talk all day about my parents and kind of what they accomplished and how hard they worked to provide for my brother, both me and my brothers, my younger brothers out here as well too. And so that's what I define as grit and determination.
I love that. And so a part of your story we talked about is this title of a Drake song, right? Started from the bottom, and now we're here, right? So can you talk a little bit about where you started your career, how you ended up in financial services, and kind of what led you in that direction?
Sure. So my very first job was Six Flags Over Texas. And that's where I met my wife at Six Flags Over Texas. She tracked me down. I wasn't trying to, she tracked me down. Maybe because I was a little shy and she wasn't, but she tracked me down. And so I no disrespect to anybody who works in the food service industry, or if you got any family members that are there, I knew I didn't have a long-term future in flipping cheeseburgers and doing that. That's just not what I wanted to do. And so as I was looking for a new career path, I thought, man, I'm gonna get me an easy job. I'm in college. And so my dad used to be a Bank of America customer before he passed away. And so I'd always go to the bank with him as a kid. That's a big deal, going to the bank with your parents. And so hey, I'm gonna apply with the bank. That's what my dad bank said. And so I got the job as a part-time teller 24, 25 years ago, and I found out very quickly the job wasn't easy. It was fast-paced, it was hard-working, ability to kind of work with people and numbers, and so that's how I got into banking. I really lucked into it, and it's really been one of the greatest things that's happened to me throughout my career is starting there. And so I've really have had, and this will probably come up later, but I've had a multitude of opportunities throughout the organization, and that's one thing that I love about it. It's such a large organization that I don't feel like I have to go anywhere else to try something else. And so I've had a multitude of jobs. I've had multi-state coverage. I've worked in operations jobs. I've worked in service jobs, and now I'm in wealth management. And so it's just outstanding to work for an organization that gives you the opportunities to not only do different things from a career standpoint, but as you heard David, or I think maybe Nui mentioned earlier, my work with Lead for Women is outstanding. It's an employee network group. Some people call them resource groups within the organization, and I get to help champion a lot of outstanding women across the organization to help them grow their careers or get access to mentors that maybe they couldn't have gotten access to before. And I get the opportunity to do that with some phenomenal leaders in Ashley Nestler, Stacey Bucheri, and Florian Junkin as well too. And so it's just a great opportunity. I also chair some diverse women hiring work at the bank as well too. So it gives me the opportunity to kind of plug in a lot of different areas, stretch myself, challenge myself, and just try new things.
So you're unusual in that you've spent majority of your career at one organization, right? Most people kind of move around, et cetera, for both advancement opportunities, et cetera. So can you talk a little bit about the value you found in staying in one organization and kind of what your path has been like being at Bank of America?
Sure. Some of that is because of the generation I came after, right? I don't know about you, but my parents were, you find a great job that you can grow in and you stick with it. You stick through the good times and the bad times, you find something, you stick with it. So that's something that I've always had ingrained in me. You finish something through and you take advantage of it. I think what I uncovered very quickly in working at Bank of America is that if you are a hardworking individual, you're somebody who's adaptable, someone who's not afraid to take risk, you can just have a ton of opportunities. And so I will tell you, don't be afraid to take risks. That is usually the biggest determinant to you achieving career success, because someone asks you to do something and you go, I really don't want to do that. That's not my favorite, or it's not something I'm passionate about. And so, I've had a ton of jobs and a ton of opportunities that I took because someone asked me to it. They thought my skill set was a great match for it. And I took the opportunity. And so I will tell you, in one of those circumstances, if you look throughout my background, I've always been kind of in relationship management roles, revenue generation type roles, with a small kind of focus on operations. And then at some point in my career, I made a pivot to take an only operations role, kind of multi-state. So I used to have coverage in most of the banking centers in Texas and New Mexico, from anything operations related inside the financial centers, salary management, training and development in about 2 states. Anybody who knows me knew I was not an operations person, but I took the job because I really wanted to kind of differentiate myself from an experience standpoint and demonstrate that I could lead in a multitude of different areas. And so that was probably the greatest pivot or move that I made in my career, because every job after that, I've taken skill sets from that job that have allowed me to be good at strategy, be good at problem solving, to be good at people management, to be good at when individuals don't necessarily report to you, so just leading through influence versus direct reports. And so, man, don't be afraid to take a challenge, because sometimes those can be the most beneficial opportunities in your career.
I would also have to imagine that staying at Bank of America all this time, you've had a lot of mentors who kind of taught you some things, and good managers, et cetera. who are some of those people who've helped you along the way, and what are some of those lessons that you've learned that have helped you continue, not only as you've elevated your career, but you've also become a mentor and helped others?
Man, so I'm gonna try not to get emotional here. So I'm a firm believer in hard work. Like, there's no substitute for it. You know, my younger brother knows we got that from my dad. Like, there's no substitute in working hard. And, you know, if you got to work 65 hours to get the job done, you work 65 hours to get the job done. And so, but I'm also a firm believer that I've gotten to this point in my career from having the right relationships, the right mentors, having the right individuals who can pull me to the side and say, hey, like, maybe you're not seeing this, but you need to get better here. Or, man, if you thought about reading this book, 'cause I think it could be beneficial for you here. And so I could talk all day about mentors. I'd call out about 4 of them that I think have been super impactful for me. And so the first one I would call out would be Diana Paredes. When I was a brand new part-time teller with Bank of America, you know, as a new associate, there's no higher person in your life as your manager. She was about 5'2" with heels on, but in my eyes, she was like 7 feet tall. Like, you know, I just had the utmost respect for her. And so I'll never forget, I'd probably been a teller for about a month. And man, I don't care what you see on TV, that's a hard job. It is a hard job. You're on your feet all day, you're moving fast, you're interacting with customers, you're interacting with your teammates, you're cashing checks. It's you know, giving great service, right? And it is a hard job. And so I remember maybe a few weeks in, leaving the banking center for the day. You got to walk past the manager's office when you do that. And I shook her hand. And you may be familiar with this. I gave her kind of the wet noodle handshake. And so she stopped me.
That's a no-no.
That's a no-no.
For students.
That's a no-no. And she stopped me immediately and said, why'd you shake my hand that way? And I said, well, you know, I'm a big guy. I always try to be careful about squeezing somebody's hand too hard. And she said, you make that the last time you ever shake somebody's hand like that. She said, people will judge you by the way you shake their hands, how you maintain eye contact, and how you look at them. That 5-minute interaction is something that I've carried with me for 25 years. Because she easily could have let me walk out the door and said nothing about it. That has impacted relationships with the organization. It's impacted how I teach my boys stuff. And so it has been significant. And so sometimes it's those small moments in your life that add tremendous value in who you become and who you are. I would also have to call out, and these are going to be no surprise to my wife and kids, I'd have to call out Charles Jones. So when I got hired into a management program, Charles was my mentor. So Charles was a phenomenal leader, great interactor with people. He was an Army Ranger, and so he was all about leadership. And so I remember being a new manager in this program. I'm assigned to him to train. I'm like, man, this guy's phenomenal. Like, I'm taking notes and paying attention to everything. And I will never forget him having to go kind of repair a location that just hadn't been performing well for a variety of different reasons and going, man, I never want to have to do this. This is a lot of work. And I think God had a plan for me, because almost every assignment I've had has been some type of fix or repair or how can you uplift the team. And so I'm thankful that he put Charles in my purview from an experience standpoint, because I learned so much from him. And then the other two being Mike Rogers. So when I got promoted into executive leadership or market manager or district manager leadership back in 2008, it was Mike Rogers who gave me my first opportunity. And so I had interviewed for those type of jobs 4 times. On the 5th time, he promoted me. He relocated from Arizona in September of 2007, promoted me in January of 2008. And so he's a phenomenal leader. He can hold you accountable. He can put his arm around you when things are not going well. He can make fun of you at your expense. He can give you great advice, career advice on how to navigate. I probably haven't worked for Mike in 6 or 7 years, and he's still someone that I call to say, hey, I'm getting ready to go back to school. Are you crazy? No, I'm not that crazy, but I'm going to do it anyway. And so I don't need him to give me the answer, but he's someone that I trust and respect to bounce ideas off of from that standpoint. And then the last person I would mention, he's no longer with the organization, would be Livingston Albritton. And so Livingston, for a lot of the qualities that I shared of other people, he was the best individual I'd ever met at establishing and maintaining relationships with people. And so I learned the value in establishing relationships with people, and not because I think I can get something from you, but you can learn, you can grow, and then you can have people in your life who can maybe show you things that you have not experienced before. And Livingston was that guy for me, and he continues to be that guy, even though he's not with the organization. And so, I mean, I can talk all day, but those 4 I would say have probably had the most impact outside of my dad in my life, and kind of how I've been shaped and groomed from a mentor perspective.
It sounds like you need a Bank of America T-shirt, man. I mean, you're representing for them today. But I think I heard a story about grit in there. So you mentioned in 2008 you applied for something 4 times and didn't get it. Can you talk a little bit more about that? How did you feel? How did you continue to move forward even after getting rejected so many
He's trying to
times?
rip the Band-Aids off of my sores. So I got a couple things I want to share. So between probably 2006 or so to 2008, I'd applied for 4 opportunities. Mind you, I was managing the largest location in the state of Texas. We had some of the largest goals in the state of Texas. We were top 5% in the division from a performance standpoint. And so, each time I interviewed, it was like, man, you need to get better here. I interview again, you need to get better there. One thing that I try to, me and my wife try to teach our boys all the time, is that I was trying to eliminate the excuses. So they said I needed to get better in an area. I got better at the area while I kept performing. I interviewed again, and he said, well, you need to get better here. And I got better. So my goal each time was to eliminate the excuses. You may say, why did you keep interviewing? They kept telling you no, because I knew I could do the job. Without fail, I knew I could do the job. And so I kept working and I kept grinding until I got to a point where I got the opportunity. And so the funniest thing ever is that, Mike showed up in September 2007. I knew him for maybe 4 months before he promoted me, but he saw something in me from a work ethic standpoint that said, he may not have all the answers, but this guy's got to work hard, and I'll teach him the other stuff as we go along the way. And so that helped me out tremendously and kind of giving me my first break and an opportunity. And then the other one, which is, I would say, was probably my biggest challenge that I've had throughout my career is so going back to Mike promoting me in 2008, man, I kicked the doors off the building. And what I mean by that, I came out working hard. I learned a lot very quickly. And so in about 2 years, I was kind of rated as one of the top market managers in the state. And so I got the opportunity to go into a program that was an executive placement and development program. And so I would have been a first-time executive at the age of 30, which is outstanding to be an executive period, but especially at such a young age. And so for the older people in the room, you understand this. For the younger people, you probably, what, the crash of what? What crash happened? And so, if you remember around kind of 2009, 10, 11 areas when we had the financial crisis and the crash, and so Bank of America was no different than a lot of other organizations. We flattened out, jobs got eliminated, jobs changed from that perspective. And so my trajectory of being in that program and getting to an executive level job, it changed. The job went away. And it's nothing that I did wrong, nothing the organization did wrong, but the job went away. And so I really had to kind of take a step back and do some soul searching to determine what I wanted to do, because that was a job I'd been working for. That job, no other ones, no backup plans, no pivots, that was a job I wanted. And so I had to meet with kind of my manager, executive D&I leadership to kind of determine what was next. And so a couple things happened throughout that journey that I want to make sure I share. I was upset. There was no other way to put it. I'm not gonna sugarcoat. I was upset. I was frustrated. I was at the door knocking and they wouldn't let me in. And so it was a frustrating point in my career, but I was thankful for one of those mentors that I didn't mention earlier, who was in town doing visits. And after we had done a multitude of visits, he pulls me to the side and says, "Man, how are you doing?" I was like, "Man, I'm doing fine." He goes, I don't think you're doing fine." I goes, "What do you mean?" He said, "I understand. I know about the job you didn't get and what happened. It's not your fault, not the company's fault. But you've been a little bit more reserved on the calls than what you typically are, right? You're not engaging or helping out, and I know that's not you. And so you can't let that challenge in your career stop you from being you and stop you from trying to help others from that standpoint." And he didn't have to do that. And I didn't know that. In my head, I thought, I'm just going to be quiet and nobody's going to notice, right? And so I thought I wasn't hurting anyone. And so he pulled me to the side and said, "Hey, you can't do that. You got to hold yourself to a higher standard and be able to navigate through those different challenges when you have them." And I did. And so that's something that I took away as I've had other challenges. Being with the organization for 24 years, there's been a lot of things that went well. And there's been some challenges that I've had. And so taking that experience of knowing how to navigate it, it's okay to be upset. I'm going to tell you, it's okay to be frustrated. But it's really how you handle it and go forward that you get future opportunities.
I love that. So given all those lessons that you've learned that you just mentioned, how does that inform how you show up as a leader? You mentioned a number of different roles you have in the organization. What are some of the things that you give to people that you mentor in terms of how they should think about elevating and advancing themselves?
So you'll hear me say this 1,000 times, man. There's no substitute for hard work. And you can be as smart as a whip. You can write books. You can read books. There's no substitute for hard work. Now, if you can be work really hard at what you do, that's when some of the other evolutions from a smarts perspective and your education, your intelligence, I think really kicks in. But there's no substitute for hard work in that standpoint. I think the other aspect of it is that you can't be afraid to take risks and take challenges. You just can't be afraid to. And so I've taken a number of jobs that I thought were stretch assignments for me or stretch challenges for me because I thought in the long term it can make me a better leader, make me a better manager.
So speaking of taking a risk, you've obviously been very successful in your career and in your organization. You kind of took a little bit of a risk by going back to school. That was a different opportunity for you. Can you talk a little bit about that thought process, why you chose to come to the great Texas Christian University and Neely School of Business, and what was that experience like?
Sure. So I got my undergrad at that other school in Arlington, UT Arlington. Had a great experience there. But my wife has heard this story before. Man, I swore I would never go back to school. Nothing happened at TCU, but I'm like, I was, if you, and I'm going to show my age, but if you think about way back when, it was like, hey, get a high school diploma, man, you can rule the world. Then it was like, hey, just get an undergrad degree. I don't care what you get it in, you're good to go. And then as much as you can see, I don't have an issue talking. And so one thing I do very well that my wife probably doesn't agree with is that I do listen to people that have done things that I have not done. I listen to people that have done things and accomplished things that I haven't done. So you can hear me talk a lot, and all of a sudden I'm quiet, and you're like, man, why is he quiet? Because I'm watching you. I'm watching the way you dress. I'm watching the way you carry yourself. And so I share that with you to say, as I'm out traveling and there's executives that I'm meeting, I'm like, man, I wish I could be like that guy, or I wish I could be like that lady. I'm looking on their walls, and they got 4 diplomas on their walls. They got an undergrad, an MBA, an executive MBA, and maybe they went back to business school. And I'm like, man, if they can go back to school, why can't I? And so that kind of started the early wheels of spinning of, man, if I can figure this out, I think I want to give it a shot and go back and get my MBA. And so that journey probably started 3 or 4 years ago. I don't do anything quickly, and I got to do my research and work. And so, for me, I wanted to find a school where I could get a great education, be a part of an outstanding network, be a part of an outstanding culture, and that it had a reputation for kind of changing lives. And so I did visit that other school in Dallas. I won't name that other school, but I visited them, and I will tell you the difference between that school and TCU was the family environment from the first time I stepped in on campus or the first time I went to a Lunch and Learn series. And so I remember talking to that other school in Dallas and going, hey, I don't make decisions quickly, but if you stick with me, maybe I'll come to school here. And I never heard from them again. Besides the junk emails that you get, right? And so the individual who was here at the time was Kevin. I'm going blank on Kevin's last name at the minute, but a lot of people know who Kevin is. Kevin recruited me, worked with me for probably 3 years before I signed up. If I had questions, he'd pull them up. As I was asking repeat questions, because I knew I'd asked him and I couldn't find my notes, he would answer the questions. And not one time did he make me feel like 2 inches off the ground. He stuck with me. And then right before COVID hit, I'm like, I'm all in. Let me go talk to my manager. And then COVID hit, and I'm like, what's this? Like, I'm an in-person guy. I don't do the whole virtual stuff. I like to be face-to-face and interact with people. And so when COVID hit, I took a step back and said, hey, I'm going to wait and figure this stuff out. And then I think what got me over the hump, there's no think, I know exactly what got me over the hump. We're about a year into COVID, and I'm like, crap, if I had started, I'd be getting ready to graduate. I'm like, man, I got to get going. And so I finally had a conversation with my manager, and I want to call her out, Rachel Scholl. And I remember meeting with her. I had this whole speech lined up because I knew I needed to be out of class. I needed to be out for work basically on Fridays, and Saturdays are non-issue because that's my time. And I had this long speech lined up, this long presentation of why I thought it'd be beneficial for me to go, and I needed your support. And I'm probably 5 minutes. And first, I'm nervous because I'm asking my boss for basically 18 months of Fridays off. And so I'm like, and so I had this long speech, and I'm probably 5 minutes into the conversation, and she goes, oh, hey, got it. We support you. Let's get started. And this is on a Friday. Don't remember the day, but I remember it was on a Friday. And I said, well, hey, if you need to think about it over the weekend and we can connect back on Monday or Tuesday. She's like, no. I said, you can go ahead and sign up. I'm like, well, crap. I'm like, this is a lot easier than what it was. I'm like sweating bullets and stressed out about it. But that's really a testament to kind of her support of her associates and her teams and their development and growth to give me that support to be able to do that. I just thought it was outstanding because I've worked for some people in the past that I wouldn't have even approached that question because I knew it wouldn't have been an option for me to kind of deviate or pivot and go back to school. And so I chose TCU. It's been such a great experience for me. Going through the program, the relationships that I made with individuals in our class have just been outstanding. And it's 23 of us, and I think we all got along, and we all were pushing towards the same goals and objectives to get out. And I think it points throughout the program we all carried each other as well too. There were some times we all had things going on. It was like, hey, you got it. We'll pull you across and keep you going. And so I'm going to share this, and I really hope I don't start crying. But, you know, I 6 months into the program, I lost my brother unexpectedly. And I will never forget, there's probably 4 or 5 people that were foundational to kind of uplifting me. There may have been a ton of other people that prayed, and you know, I'll never know who those individuals are. But my first team that I was assigned to, and I'm not going to look at her because we're going to start crying, but it was Amy Phipps, Bruno Soto, and then Brad Nickel. And so I will never forget when they found out about it, the amount of support they gave me. And I'm thinking, man, mind you, we got along great. Like, we hit it off from day one. I don't know why, but we just hit it off from day one. But I've only known them for 6 months. And the phone calls, and the text, and the dinner sent to my house, and the largest flower arrangement at my brother's funeral. And they kept on. And I'm like, hey, yeah, I got it. I appreciate it. And they wouldn't stop trying to support me and being a friend and now being a family member. And I thought it was outstanding. And then a lot of people don't know this. I got two other people. I want to call out Nui. Nui, you know, I obviously didn't know him before the program. I mean, I saw him on TV. I know he loves the Cowboys, and I don't hold that against him. But he was one that reached out to me probably almost every day, whether it be a text message or on Twitter to say, hey, how are you doing? Do you need some help? Like, I'm praying for you. He'd send me Bible verses from that perspective. He didn't have to do that. I didn't ask him to do it. But it was so appreciative in my weakest moment that I had people that I only met 6 months ago that were there to support me and help me out. And so a lot of people don't know, man, I almost didn't come back to school. My family is the most important thing for me. And so when that happened unexpectedly, I'm like, you know what? I love the TCU experience. Everything's going great. But my mom's more important right now. My brother's more important. My wife and kids are more important. Maybe I need to pause and then come back later. And so it was the 4 of them that whether they knew it or not, it was like, I got to come back. I got to keep going, because they had my back when I needed it the most. And then probably even after I came back, and I got professors in the room, so I probably shouldn't say this, they probably carried me the first month I came back. I mean, I was in the classroom. I was in meetings. I was trying to do my best, but my mind wasn't here. And so they carried me unequivocally for a month. There was no, you owe us. There was no, you need to pay us back. And so I think that's a testament to the culture of TCU. It's a testament to them as individuals. And again, it only validates the reason why I came to school here.
I hope that we recorded that. Let's get a hand flat. I think that's the TCU commercial right there, right? Like, TCU actually family. They don't do that at the other school in Dallas. That's amazing, and that's awesome. From a career standpoint, how has coming here as a student helped you continue to grow as a leader and whatnot?
You know, man, this has been a really good year. Yeah, I have a leader that I consider a mentor on the wealth management side, outstanding guy. And we talk all the time about family. His boys play baseball, mine plays baseball. And so we always talk about family and career. And we were talking towards the end of maybe December or so, and then maybe in January. And he said, man, I think this is going to be a big year for you. And I'm like, man, he must be a fortune teller, because I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. And he's like, man, I think this is going to be a really good year, big year for you. And it really has been. And so, you know, we graduated with our MBAs back in May. Feels like an eternity ago, and it's been like 3 months. And so graduated with an MBA program, and there was so many emotions at the graduation. You know, my brother and his girlfriend was there, my family's there, my mom and her husband are there. And I'm like, man, I was overwhelmed, because I was thinking about my dad and I was thinking about my brother the whole time. And so, and then I'm walking by, and you know, my younger brother is yelling stuff at me to embarrass me, which is what you do to family members. and I hear him say, man, you're the first one in our family to get an MBA. I'm like, oh crap, like I didn't think about that, you know. So that was one more thing kind of on the emotion train of you know, I'm glad that I was able to accomplish that and be able to do it from that perspective. You know, the other thing I would say, you know, how this has enhanced me is just it's my kids. Like, I never was really a big reader before, and so because of all the studying and reading and books we had to do, I now find myself, reading stuff all the time. It may be a 5-pager, maybe a 10-pager, but when I am tasked with reading a book that may be, 500 pages, it doesn't bother me anymore. So my scope of things that I'd like to do and want to do now have changed dramatically. And some of it's because you're right, you go to school, you get in study mode, and that's how things work. But I feel like I'm a better leader, I'm a better person. My relationships and network have obviously significantly grown, and so again, I'm extremely thankful. I could have went a lot of other places to go to school. I chose to go to school here. Fort Worth is, I've officed in Fort Worth and Dallas, but Fort Worth has always felt like home, and so it just made sense in a lot of reasons for me to go to TCU, and so. It's and again, I think I talk about Monday great days, and this is nothing at all about UT Arlington. But once I graduated, I was out of there. That was it. There was no going back. I didn't want to go back. I just didn't. And so I felt an obligation with TCU to get plugged in. And so I'm thankful for my relationship with Ann, and Ann has gotten me plugged into a couple things. I'm thankful for the opportunity to do this. And so I want to be a part of the alumni that gives back. And so that's really important to me.
Love that. I know that we had a conversation before about kind of some of your key takeaways, right? And if you had to say 2 or 3 things that you think have kind of helped guide you through your career, that you think students and people in the audience today should be thinking about as to them, what would those 3 things be?
Man, we talked about it, and now I got 100 more I'd like to share. So the first one I would do.
Feel free.
The first one I would share is just really a commitment to excellence. And so I think you got to have a commitment to excellence in whatever you do, right? And so there's no, I'll just share my example. Either I'm 100% committed or I don't do it. There's no in between. And my boys chuckle with me because Malachi's a long distance track runner, Sean plays baseball. I'm either you're going to do it 110% or you're not going to do it. That means the practice, the extra work, the commitment to making yourself a better athlete and a better leader. You either all in or you're not. And so that's kind of my deal. I say yes to a lot of stuff, and if I say yes, you're going to get 100% of what I have to offer. But if I feel like I can't do that, I won't do it. And from that standpoint, so commitment to excellence and give it all in. The other thing I would say is being a continuous learner. Again, I gave you the example. I thought, undergrad degree and I'm out. And so my mentality has significantly changed around this. And so I think you always have to look for opportunities to learn and grow, whether you come back to TCU and join one of their multitude of outstanding programs, or you go to banking school or leadership training academy, 90-day courses, 2-year courses. I think you always have to look for ways to how can you enhance, how can you grow, how can you improve your business acumen. I think that's really, really important. And again, that's been a change or a pivot for me from that point. And then my boys have heard this 1,000 times, and then my daughter too. She's off in school at UNT, and so I'm always talking to them about their standard. What's important for you? What do you want to be known for? And so, first I'd highlight Malachi, for example. He's a really good long distance runner. He took a little bit of time off during COVID when he wasn't running, and so he since has gotten back into running. He's dropped a ton of weight. I know a lot of individuals who, if they had taken the time off, wouldn't have worked as hard as he did to get back to this point. He's dropped almost 6 minutes from his 5K time from April to now. That's significant. And so he had a run yesterday, and he dropped his time, I think down another 43 seconds. And I was texting him before the race, and I said, man, what's your standard? What's your standard? I didn't say what was mine. I didn't say what was your mom, what's your coach. I said, what's your standard? And then Sean's another example. He loves to play baseball. This summer, man, this guy's a 400, and I say career hitter. He plays a lot of travel ball, but he's a 400 hitter. He's had 17 home runs in his career over the fence. I don't count the ones that land before. And he's an outstanding leader. He's a great teammate. This summer, he got walked 18 times, and he only struck out 4 times. He's an outstanding, phenomenal thing. But the thing that I'm the most impressed with about both of them, they're great young men, they're great leaders, they're great teammates, and I get a lot of comments from other parents that walk up to me and my wife and will say, man, I knew what was going on because I heard Sean communicating at first base. I knew what was going on because Malachi did X, Y, Z, he had my back. And so that's more impressive to me, how they carry themselves, how they're willing to help other people, how they're leaders of what they do. But Sean knows I'm always asking him, man, what's your standard? Because I think a lot of what they do in school, they're A students, a lot of what they do in school and a lot of what they do in sports is tied to me and mom. So if me and mom are happy with it, they're happy with it. If we're not happy with it, they're not happy with it. And I told them that's unacceptable. I said, your standard has to be higher than mine, your coaches, your teammates, because your standard is how you carry yourself. It's what you are known for. And so that's what I'm trying to establish in them and as well, because at some point they'll be off, they'll be out of the house, they'll be in college, and after that they'll have a family of their own they have to raise. And that's something that I continue to repeat. And so I'm going to share a career story that I told David, or I told a group earlier today. And so back in 2008, when I first got promoted by Mike Rogers, I probably had been in the role maybe a month, and I had an executive go out on a visit with me. And then we got to the end of the visit. He gave me feedback, and he said, man, this visit was terrible. Like, it didn't go well. And so he gave me the feedback. I was embarrassed. I was frustrated. But I took the feedback he gave me to heart, and I immediately went back to Mike and took the feedback and made some changes. So I didn't know that 2 months later, this same executive called me up again and said, hey, I'm back in market, would love to get out and get out in the field with you again. And so, we're out in the field, we're doing the visit, and he pulls me to the side halfway during the visit. And I'm thinking, oh crap, what did I screw up this time? And so halfway through the visit, he said, I got two things that I've observed very quickly. He says, you're a very receptive coach. Everything that I coached you on last time, you fixed every bit of it, and then some. And he said, then I can tell you won't let anybody outwork you. So that's my standard, right? That's how I carry myself. That's how I prepare. That's how I work. That's important to me. He knew those things about me, and I didn't tell him. And so that's what I'm always on my boys about. That's what I'm always on individuals that I mentor or that I lead is you got to have a standard. It's how you carry yourself. It's how you engage people. It's how you try to help people when no one's looking, right? And so those things are really important. And so standard, commitment to excellence, and I think I shared something else. I can't remember, but I would say this to everybody in the audience. In my opinion, you can accomplish anything you put your mind to. You may have to work hard. You may have to do what others are not willing to do. You may have to take stretch assignments, but you can accomplish anything that you put your mind to. And so the last thing I'm going to share before I get in trouble with my mother is I give my dad a lot of credit for, instilling with me kind of a strong work ethic, stronger than most. But man, it was my mom at the early age who instilled the you can do anything attitude. And so I will never forget in the second grade struggling with some division homework. Now, the young people in the room were like, why'd you struggle with division? And you just pull out the calculator? So back then, all you had was a sheet of paper and a pencil. There was no iPhone or calculator. Like, you had to pull out a sheet of paper and a pencil to do it. And so I was struggling with it at the kitchen table. And I think at some point I made a comment and said, man, I can't do this. Probably the worst mistake of my life. I said, I can't do it. I think my mom overheard me. She came over. She gave me a little bit of a love tap. And I say love. I didn't feel the love when she gave me the tap. And she looked me in the eye and said, I don't want to ever hear you say you can't do something again. If you are struggling with something, do the problem 1,000 times. Work 10 hours, but you figure it out. Ask for help. But I don't ever want to hear you say you can't do something again. And I'll tell you, that's something I've carried throughout my entire life, whether it be at work or school or family. And that's something, again, me and my wife have tried to pass on our boys. I don't ever want to hear you say you can't do something. You may have to work harder than someone else. You may have to apply yourself a little harder, and that's okay. But that's a life lesson that I learned from my mother that I want to share with everybody. You can do whatever you want to. You may not be the smartest at it. There's some things that come naturally to individuals than you, and that's just part of life. But don't be afraid to put in the work, put in the commitment, leverage relationships, because relationships matter, in my opinion, and go after it.
Well, thank you for spending this time with us, and thank you for setting the standard for us. Obviously, setting the standard as a father, as a representative of the illustrious Neely School of Business, and for kicking off setting the standard for our fall Against All Odds series. So thank you, Rod.
Hey, appreciate the opportunity.
So I just wanted to, again, thank Rod he immediately said yes. Some people say, well, let me check my calendar. Let me make sure that doesn't conflict with something. No. Rod said, you know what, Ann, we'll figure it out. We're going to make it happen. So thank you. Thank you for carving out time in your day. Thank you for bringing your family. Thank you for bringing your Bank of America leadership team with you today. And thank you for spearheading the support of the series and then kicking us off with such an amazing point of view and such great pearls of wisdom. So thank you again, Rod. So with that, I want to always take advantage of the time before you to leave you with a charge, with a call to action. The call to action is, how are you going to make a difference in the environment around you? That's what this is all about, right? How are you going to make a difference? Make a choice to get engaged and to do what you can do to make TCU just this incredible place for everybody. Have a great day.